Hello everybody, welcome to my certified video essay about a game that's been talked about to death a billion times already. Okay, yeah, I know making this video isn't original in the slightest, but when I say I binged Earthbound, I mean I binged Earthbound. I consumed Earthbound at all times of the day. My sleep paralysis demon is Gygus. And my favorite piece of literature ever created is this Earthbound manga, which you probably didn't even know existed until now. But I actually have something to confess to you guys. I never actually beat Earthbound. I know. As someone who literally worked on an Earthbound fan game, it's almost blasphemy for me not to have beaten the game. But just hear me out for a second. I got lazy. Okay, yeah, that just makes me look worse actually. To atone for my sins, I decided it would be a good idea to not only play Earthbound, but immerse myself in everything surrounding the game as well. This is not my first time playing, but it's basically a blind playthrough because I haven't played it in years and forgot basically everything. This is one of those games that I can give credit for as to why I love RPGs so much, and I still love it today. In this video, I'll be analyzing things like its music, those weird official Japanese only manga issues, advertisements, promos, fan games, and even some other weird stuff. Funny story, this isn't my first time making this video. In fact, it's technically been in the works for years now. I redid this entire project from scratch because I'm a perfectionist along with being a workaholic. That combo it's not very good for the mind, let me just say that. Also, the original version of this video is basically unwatchable. My voice sucked, the audio sucked, the script sucked. Maybe that's the perfectionist side of me talking though, I don't know. But hey, doing it again will allow me to be even more thorough this time. Yeah, no, let's just delve into the damn game already. Earthbound is a game about change. And I guess the most ironic part of this video taking so long is that my life has violently changed ever since I started this project. I went from playing Earthbound in my big comfy room to being a struggling, broke-ass, lonely-ass, dumbass college student with no friends. I always question why my friend told me he does drugs to feel happy, but in these trying times, an Earthbound fix is what gets me through the day. Barring the fact that substance abuse is a common theme in this game, even after the fact that everything has changed so much, playing this brings me back to a time where my responsibilities felt so minimal. Sometimes I wake up stressed out because I missed a meeting or have a big test, and I can't help but envy my past self playing Earthbound while eating ramen and watching video essays on Japanese politics for some reason. Let me tell you though, all that aside, this game is the Chronic, and I don't mean the 1992 album by Dr. Dre. Although the lyrics would kinda thematically fit into Porky's descent into evil if you really think about it. Earthbound never fails to surprise me. As someone who has made playing RPGs my second job, this game never fails to blow me away. It doesn't feel like a SNES RPG, and that's not a diss to SNES RPGs at all. This game isn't a gateway into RPGs because it is so contained in its own little bubble that it's hard to search outside of that without feeling a bit disappointed. I know so many people who hate RPGs that for some reason leave this game as the exception, and it's honestly kinda weird. It feels so ahead of its time in its writing and structure. As every freaking reviewer on this planet has to mention, this game is so freaking quirky and wacky, am I right guys? Instead of potions, you eat regular food like a normal human being. Oh my gosh, it's so subversive. I'm not here to say the same things you've heard over and over again. In fact, I want to provide a new, more unique perspective on this 30-year-old game. An American perspective. So let's start out at the beginning. We start out with this image, the war against Gygus. That sounds like a corny 1950s flick right there. Some Plan 9 from outer space looking stuff. I love those corny, poorly made 50s and 60s flicks. I always have to ponder what production was like and how the people are doing now. It's really funny because even though a lot of those movies were bad, you can see the heart and passion behind its incompetence. Like for a hot minute, I was obsessed with Ed Wood, and this kinda reminds me of that. It just gives me those vibes, you know? Passion is generally able to override most of the negative aspects of the art we consume. And that makes sense given how much I love Earthbound. And how annoying it actually is. More on that later. We're greeted with this great preview where the game spoils us on all of the great locations we're going to see because it cannot control itself. And can I really blame it? Too bad this game was a dud. Not in quality, obviously, but in sales. I would never trash on this game like that. Come on. Okay, imagine spending 5 years to make this super cool, unique RPG, going through thick and thin to get it released, spending almost $2 million on marketing, only for it to fail in the States. Gosh darn it, America, you ruined things once again. This is why they gatekeep all the good RPGs. You people would rather play Gulf War Simulator. The most interesting thing to me about Earthbound is how it's a view of America from a Japanese perspective. A lot of aspects of Earthbound are almost stereotypical in portrayal, and it's really funny. You can tell a lot of what is portrayed here comes from older American media and might not really apply to even the 90s when this game came out. Oh yeah, it's also not called America in this, it's actually Eagleland. Yeah, real Zelda Nintendo, real clever. This game stinks. You see there, I am actually referencing a really infamous ad for this game. Even people who have never touched Earthbound know how bad of an advertisement this is. This game stinks. I know it's trying to replicate the unique humor this game has, but it's such an obnoxious way to do it. It feels so grossly 90s, and I don't mean in a good way. For some reason, adults just collectively decided that kids were super into vile, gross, disgusting stuff. The contents of the ad itself aren't that bad, but do we really need this disgusting green cloud covering like a sixth of the page? To be fair though, I can't fully blame them for this too much. One reviewer actually called the game nauseatingly cheery as if it's an insult. People at the time didn't want something like Earthbound, so it makes sense that they tried to market it as something different than it really was. We'll go on to some other commercials later. I'm getting sidetracked. Earthbound has multiple regions, which I have attributed to real life places. Eagleland, which is obviously the good US of A, Foggyland, which comprises most of Western Europe, and Chomo, which is obviously well, it's weird. It's kind of all over the place. It features a place based on North Africa, somewhere in Central Asia, a place with freaking living dinosaurs. If I'm being generous, I could say Scaraba is actually in the Middle East, which would mean Chomo encompasses all of Asia, but that doesn't explain the dinosaurs. I need to stop trying to make sense of this. The video just started, and this script is already more chaotic than the Chinese Civil War. Which one, you ask? I don't know. Take your pick, I guess. Maybe the one where they ate people? Okay, yeah, that still doesn't narrow it down. It's the middle of the night, and my irresponsible mom just lets me wander out after hearing a loud-ass noise coming from outside. Remember earlier how I said this game is a reflection of America from a Japanese perspective? Well, what I find interesting is whenever a foreigner makes a piece of media that satirizes America in a way, they usually default to three things. They make fun of America's obsession with racial identity, they make fun of our healthcare, or they make fun of our cops. And this game kinda sorta does all three. I'll touch on the first two in the future. The cops in this game are just dumb, straight up incompetent. They're portrayed as dumb, but still smart enough to know what they're doing is corrupt. That's most adults in this game actually. The mayor is literally willing to use this 13-year-old boy as his fall guy. And it really doesn't hold back on portraying law enforcement as a corrupt and violent institution. We go meet Pokey at these barricades, and I'm gonna call him Porky because that's how I'm used to doing it. He's just the annoying next door neighbor trope, with a twist. He gets abused. Wait, no, that's not the twist. Well, I mean, I guess it is a subversion. Usually the annoying next door neighbor character has snooty stuck-up parents who coddle their child. These parents just fucking beat him. We go back home and try to go to bed, but freaking Porky wakes us up with his loud knock. This sounds like something from a horror movie, but everybody is just so chill about it. This knock is horrifying, dude. My dog Bixa comes with me and carries all of my battles too. And geez, Porky is just there hiding behind me like a little pig, tired of this text showing up every turn of Porky telling me to eat ass. The battle system is amazing though. It's so simple, but a few small innovations make it really unique. First of all, the moving battle backgrounds are captivating and iconic. Can't get enough of them. And the sliding health bar is actually revolutionary. At first, it bears little significance, but it's extremely game-changing for a few reasons. There are going to be times where enemies do big damage and basically take all of your HP, but there's one thing you can do about that. As the slider goes down, you can actually heal your party member to make sure they don't pass out. But it has to be done before their health goes all the way down to zero. It creates a sense of urgency and really makes battles feel more dynamic. Also, did I mention that there are no random encounters? Because there aren't. Funnily enough, I think I find myself getting into more battles with this mechanic though, since they do chase you around, and I also can't help but slaughter the enemies desperately trying to escape me. We go up to this meteor and find this bee named Buzz. He tells us this whole story about Gygus and how he's from 10 years in the future. On the way back home, we get intercepted by Starman Jr., one of the more iconic enemies in the series. Buzz does most of the work as I just kinda twiddle my thumbs during the fight. Buzz dies to the hands of Porky's mom, and this adventure that could have been made so much easier is now going to take forever. I feel like it's in their blood to just ruin everything, huh? A dying Buzz tells me about the 8 melodies I need to collect to restore peace to Earth. And after all of that tragedy, we get to take a picture with the man, the myth, the absolute legend himself, Camera Guy. I don't know why my man Camera Guy has gotten so much hate lately, but I won't stand for it. This guy is the MVP of Earthbound. I love this man. If you want any idea how deep fans of this game will delve for new theories, I one time randomly saw a guy state that the Camera Guy is secretly a predator/stalker and follows Ness around for very sinister reasons. Yeah, you people make me sick. And just like the person who probably concocted that theory, Ness also doesn't have a father. Well, he does, but he's just sorta absent, you know, busy with his career, sitting on an insatiable amount of money I made from fighting stray dogs and junkies. If I knew my son was making this kind of cash, I'd come right back home and spend as much time with him as possible. But for now, we're stuck here, in a nice little town called On It. It's a perfect first town, as it sets you up for how the rest of the game is going to feel, only on a smaller scale. Lots of shops and houses to enter, absolutely insane NPC dialogue, commentary on the state of modern America, aka the 90s, and gangsters. Earlier, I said the devs definitely drew from a lot of older media when developing their view on the US, because these gangsters are very 1950s, 1960s-esque. With their vernacular, hula hoops and skateboards, and Frankie himself looks like a mobster straight out of 1940s Chicago. I feel like Japanese humor and American humor just meshes really well together, and this game honestly helps visualize that. I'm not Japanese and I can't even speak the language, so I'm not an authority figure on this. But I always saw Japanese humor as fast-paced and wacky. Not nonsensical though, as it has a reason for it being that way. And I also feel like wacky media can get away with a lot more dark stuff. There's another side of Japanese humor that appears really subdued and modest though. To the average non-Japanese listener, it's not hard to take it with a completely straight face. American humor I often view as being really cynical, but being framed in a way where it's not really sad. A lot of that is seen here, especially when the topic pertains to America in some way. I'm not saying Japanese or American humor are solely those two things, but I find them to be both very prominent in their cultures. Especially since I'm American, all of my non-American friends think our jokes are messed up and depressing, which they are. I'm so desensitized to it, it's not even funny anymore. Please help me, please. For example, the first hospital in the game has this messed up joke that basically sums up American healthcare in a nutshell. I really didn't expect Earthbound to satirize how the American healthcare system will profit from the death of people, but it's a welcome addition, I guess. And there's also a lot of meta dialogue here, and it was done before it was cool. My mind has kind of been scrambled due to the fact that meta dialogue was seen as the coolest thing ever for like 7 years. So going back to Earthbound feels quaint, even if some NPCs just straight up state you're playing a video game. Also, the dev is in the body of this dog. Does that sound familiar to you at all? As I continue on the story, I go over to rid the town of these thugs. And I die, by the way. Okay, this is super out of character for me, but it's fine. I beat some of the hardest RPGs the world has to offer. This is just a little blip in my timeline. Okay, and I die again. Who dies at Frank, dude? What the hell? I like how pathetically Frank is portrayed in this game. A 30-year-old man hanging around in someone's backyard with his gang of probably middle schoolers and high school freshmen. Also, he just looks particularly sleazy. And let's not gloss over the fact that he pulled a knife out on a 13-year-old boy. So I did a bit more grinding, and I have to say, auto battle is less useful than I'd like it to be. It doesn't play optimally if you get my drift. Usually when you play an RPG, you down all enemies one by one, but this auto battle decides to attack accordingly to how high their health is. Auto battle will attack him once, then move on to the next enemy and attack him once as well. So now, when it's their turn to attack, I'll be getting my ass beat by both of them twice. It's not a huge deal later on in the game, but it's super noticeable early on. The rest of On It is cool and definitely will get you acquainted with not just RPGs, but with how the rest of the game will play out. Earthbound follows a formula where there's always a bigger fish, both on a micro and macro scale. There are so many bosses contained in different areas, and each time I think I beat the enemy I need to, there's always something bigger out there. For example, in On It, at first it's Frankie, then it's Frankenstein Mark II, then it's Titanic Ant, then it's a lineup of police. I generally say the Titanic Ant is the climax of the sequence, but it still follows a chain of threats that always take you off guard. It reminds me of that villain of the week type thing you'd see in older TV shows. And Earthbound itself supports that with this cartoony aesthetic it has. As a pixel artist myself, I swear I've said this so many times, and no, I won't stop bringing it up on this channel. I can just appreciate these sprites so much. They're so well crafted and injected with personality. It's especially noticeable in the human battle sprites. They give them such quirky looking poses. And I love the soft colors they use. There's a subtle amount of complexity in these sprites that make them hard to replicate accurately. My favorite memes are just those cursed images that are remade in the Earthbound art style as if they were real enemies. This game has also been so influential in its style as well. Some of my earliest works of pixel art were directly ripped from Earthbound without me even knowing. I mean, it doesn't look great. It really doesn't look great. Seriously, what the f was I thinking when I made this? But if you want to start making pixel art, this game is genuinely such a good starting point. Enough about the art though. Let's get on to Tucson. Tucson is already an upgrade from On It in terms of structure. Everything feels much bigger here, and it's actually impressive. Tucson reminds me of the South in a way. For one, because it's literally south of On It, and also On It gives me a sort of Midwestern or even New England suburb vibe. Tucson gives me the vibes of a small town in the middle of Alabama. Even the giant mall fits. I know Tucson is the real life counterpart of Tucson in terms of naming, but I feel like the South just fits better for this location too. A weird thing here in the South is that most of it will look kinda run down and rural, then for some reason, there's this one super impressive structure in the middle of all the mediocrity. Think the Bass Pro Shop pyramid in Memphis. I mean, Memphis is Memphis, okay? No disrespect, but that pyramid is probably more well known than the entire city. Unless you're listening to Tommy Wright 3, who is just the goat of music. Please listen to Ashes to Ashes, Dust to Dust. He made and produced it at 18, and it's genuinely so freaking good. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I just needed to put y'all on for a second. You won't be mad if you just listen to it. In regards to the South, the happyism thing reminds me of the South too, and not for that reason, okay? I'll get to that in a bit. I'm more so mean in the fact that the South had a weird amount of cults back in the day for some reason. Like, a crazy amount, and I don't know why. Probably due to isolation and the more community-oriented, tight-knit nature the South has. Around Tucson, everyone is obsessed with Paula. In fact, it seems like she's the talk of the town here. Well, it's not really that odd since she does have psychic powers. If you haven't noticed already, this game requires a huge suspension of disbelief, and I think it makes for a better experience. Most people in this world just act like every crazy thing going on is a normal occurrence. It get kind of annoying if every NPC just says something like, "Oh my gosh, aren't these wacky aliens crazy?" It also just helps with the structure of this game too. Things just sort of happen, and the game doesn't feel an obligation to explain any of it. Earthbound, believe it or not, leaves a lot up to choice, more so than a lot of other SNES RPGs. Being able to fight the Sanctuary Guardians in a different order, having multiple ways to utilize each character to your liking, and optional bosses like our boy Everdread, who I am just learning is in fact optional. Most people end up fighting him just due to the fact that he stands out, and it's small stuff like this that adds to the experience. Sure, every free-feeling thing I mentioned earlier sounds basic by modern standards, and even back then, I can admit it wasn't groundbreaking. But I can still commend what they've done with this, especially since every playthrough I've done has felt different. So despite Earthbound being a shared experience, each individual still has their own stories to tell. Anyway, Everdread is one of the more important characters in Tucson, as he gives you directions to Paula. After this comes a really memorable moment that's iconic in the series, but not for the reason you think. As you try to go to Happy Village, you're blocked by a giant silver pencil. The silver pencil being completely unexplained, and more weird Earthboundisms that you just have to come to terms with. When you head back to town, you can meet with two scientists, one being being Apple Kid and the other being Orange Kid. Now, if you know anything about the developer of this game, you'd know that he has certain views on the different classes in society. He views the blue-collar working class to get things done better, hence Apple Kid is the one who actually fixes what you need despite looking kinda disheveled. So yeah, remember when I was talking about the Chinese Civil War earlier? Well, it all comes full circle. Shigesato Itoi, more like Shigesato Mao Toi. Okay, yeah, that's just not funny. That's not funny. I'm sorry. Orange Kid is supposed to represent the white-collar workers who only do things for profit rather than a need to sustain themselves. Therefore, his invention is a piece of shit and is useless. I didn't know this, so I wasted $200 on Orange Kid's stupid invention and it broke down immediately. See, Apple Kid gets stuff done around here. He's a true visionary. Apple Kid and Orange Kid aren't even in the same boat. It's like comparing apples to I forgot how it went. You see, like I said earlier, this part of the game is really well known, but without context, it seems like just another silly, outlandish Earthbound moment. And even though it does have a deeper meaning, it still is a silly, quirky moment in the game, and that's why it's so special to me. Despite all the wackiness, there is still a lot that can be interpreted from it. After we get the pencil eraser, we're finally able to access Peaceful Rest Valley, which is anything but peaceful. Oh my gosh, this game is so unnecessarily annoying. It's almost a miracle that it's so enjoyable. We already see a lot of this in Tucson, but it gets really bad here and sort of fluctuates throughout the rest of the game. These UFOs that will infect you with a cold and it gets really irritating. These sprouts that drain PSI, oh my gosh, please go away. And the trees that explode, yeah, they just do that. I don't know what to say about this, I really don't. This game is annoying. I'm not saying the game is worse due to this, not at all, weirdly enough. And I get the sense that the devs were throwing you into the water, hoping you'd learn how to swim eventually. Because these mechanics, annoying enemies, and status effects do come back later, and they come back hard. But they're also more easy to handle once you get accustomed to the game and have the resources you need to combat them. So I'd argue in the future, it's not as intrusive as it is here, but it can be more daunting later on too, as the stakes here are much lower. The hit accuracy throughout this is also just atrocious. Accuracy is going to be huge in Earthbound. More so than most RPGs, there are certain weapon types and weapons themselves that have reduced accuracy but more damage. And this sounds super enticing, and it would be enticing in any other RPG, but not for Earthbound, let me tell you that much. Even with optimal hit accuracy, it seems as if at least one party member misses per turn, and it gets maddening. In Peaceful Rest Valley, I tried out the slingshot weapon, and it made me want to cry out of absolute frustration. That miss sound gives me so much PTSD. Homesickness is also annoying too. It's a random status effect where Ness misses his mommy. I would totally make fun of him, but I miss my mommy too, Ness. I miss her too. He'll be demotivated in battle and act like me, all demotivated and depressed and incompetent. God, I miss home. And just hit up your mom and tell her it's all good and you'll be straight. Wish it was that easy IRL. Peaceful Rest Valley, beyond all the annoyance, is rather vanilla and not too much of note. So let's go on to when I truly fell in love with this game. When I first realized I was playing something special. It's cult time. Or racism time, depending on how you interpret it. I don't know. I do both. Both is good. What can I even say about Happy Happy Village that hasn't already been said? Probably one of the most iconic locations in gaming. Its isolation, eerie atmosphere, and weird inhabitants. You know the ones. They kinda resemble something. The blue hoods, their weird obsession with an arbitrary color, and their intolerance for those who don't accept their ideology. Exactly, viewer. They're based on the Japanese cult Aum Shinrikyo, responsible for domestic terrorism, several kidnappings, and this weird as hell anime. Okay, yeah, so there's two ways to look at the Happy Happyism cult in this game. Since it is inspired by two things, both the Ku Klux Klan and Aum Shinrikyo. Many people associate the Happy Happyism cult more with the former, as, I mean, just look at them. Especially their Japanese sprites, plus their whole obsession with, again, an arbitrary color that doesn't really mean anything at all, aside from what humans attribute to it. As for Aum Shinrikyo, this game came out before the 1995 terrorist attack. If it had happened prior to the release of this game, I can imagine this part would be changed or completely cut out. Imagine playing Mario and for some reason, there's this super out of place level that's a critique on the war on terror with Osama bin Koopa as the final boss. The kidnappings are an inside job, Mario. Despite the dark subject it's satirizing, it still manages to remain lighthearted. Obviously the whole blue thing is ridiculous in itself, but also the pun with Mr. Carpenter's name, since, you know, he is the prophet of this religion, and it's a play on words to how Jesus was a carpenter. You know, Mr. Carpenter, I'm sure you get it. Basically showing how this guy is that religion's version of Jesus. But despite what I said earlier about this place being lighthearted, it manages to be so damn unsettling at the same time. A lot of the time, at least in America, cults usually take solace in more isolated areas, leading to people being stuck in these echo chambers of societies where everyone must think the same, and that is reflected here certainly. Everyone's speech and mannerisms are so unorthodox, it's like there's a supernatural force behind it all. In fact, maybe there is. Anyway, I'll get to that later. Happy Happy Village reminds me of Jonestown, a large group of people in an isolated area free from oppositional forces trying to bring them back to Earth. Anyway, while we're at it, I slaughter a ton of cultists so I can grind levels, almost enough to destroy the entire religion to be honest. And I go over to Paula to see how she's doing, and she gives us the Franklin badge. The Japanese release of the game states that the badge was directly named after Benjamin Franklin, founding father. And hey, it's a good name. It is good with lightning after all. Porky jumps us, and I beat his little team really easily. I must say, this is the beginning of Porky jumping around different places and establishing himself as an authority figure. I think it comes from the fact that he wants to find a sense of belonging in the world. And this is the first exhibition of that, showing him join a literal cult just to fit in, not even believing what they preach, just wanting to fit in somehow. I think that says a lot about his character as a whole. I love to crap on Porky, but I never thought he started out evil. In fact, I don't think his nature is truly evil. Plus, the American version makes him seem worse than he really is. After the whole Happy Happy incident, Porky actually apologizes to you in the Japanese version. In the American release, he apologizes too, but then pulls a JK on you and leaves, and this really bothers me as it's so unnecessary. I find that a lot of translated versions of games will add these small, inconsequential seeming pieces of dialogue, maybe to just add humor to the situation or something, but then it ends up kind of muddling the original creator's intentions. It's a strange, unnecessarily added piece of dialogue, and it takes away from some of Porky's depth. I go into the main house, and it's just brimming with the cultist dudes. No individuality in this place at all, they're just cogs in a machine. I also think too many people gloss over the fact that these dudes were literally going to sacrifice Paula. After we defeat Mr. Carpenter, he mentions the many statue. Now one thing I love about this game is how interpretable it is. There are so many fan theories, and I can say none of them are wrong. Even the camera guy predator theory I mentioned earlier, it sucks so bad and it's not canon, but it's an interpretation. All of that to say, I myself have an interpretation. I think the many statue is what made Porky the way he is. Not directly, but it certainly played a key part in the events that made him how he is now. I don't literally think it made him evil, but a lot of the things Porky got involved in are in part due to the effects of the statue. The whole happyism thing in the first place, in the advent of Porky's power trips, it's the first real taste of authority he ever gets. And as a kid who's clearly neglected at home, this probably felt so liberating for him. Montoli, later making Porky his advisor, only furthering his desire for power and also making his father stop being horrible towards him. Up to a certain point, Porky has benefited from the effects of the statue, and it really helped him throughout everything. It's a mix of Porky's own actions and desires, along with external influence. And this becomes clear that it's internal for Porky, because unlike every adversary influenced by Gygus, Porky doesn't stop being this way. When you fight Porky at the end of the game, he doesn't become tame, instead he retreats. And that's the most interesting thing about Porky, the ambiguity of his autonomy. Back in Happy Happy Village, the moment Mr. Carpenter is defeated, the town turns back to normal. And the area, originally crammed with cultists, only has a few sticking around, making it another innocuous area in a game full of many. More notably the areas I would like to call the intermediary areas. Peaceful Rest Valley I forgot existed entirely before replaying. The area to the second sanctuary I also forgot exists. I wouldn't say it's a problem with the game, just more of a testament to how crammed full of stuff this game is in fact. It takes place in America, it needs a lot of diverse and open areas, and if you're not American, just know 80% of our country is forgettable areas you pass through once. Hell, some entire states are just that, and I'm allowed to say that because I've lived in them. We go back to Tucson, and Everdrake gives us 10k while also talking even more about the Many statue. Knowing Everdread, this money is definitely dirty, so I do not want to be associated with this. I immediately give it to someone else to make it their problem instead, and do that by freeing an indebted band. They're pretty good. They're called the Runaway Five. Here's to hoping we won't have to save them again and give up even more money in the future. With all that said and done, Tucson makes me nostalgic for my childhood, especially the fall season, which has always been the most special to me. The beginning of school time, going out with friends and doing fun stuff in nature, watching horror movies, going to late night horror attractions, and absolutely pissing my pants. Tucson just brings me back to those nice feelings, which is why the next town feels like such a tonal whiplash. Threed is like a better version of 1980s Detroit, a time of lawlessness, drugs, and zombies, aka crackheads. I guess you could also say it resembles 90s Memphis, since back then, a lot of rappers had like a really weird obsession with occult stuff and like scary things. I don't know, it was weird. But I interpret it as a reflection of the period of urban decay that occurred mainly during the 70s and 80s. It resonates with me with how the townspeople kinda have to deal with the destruction and degeneracy around them. It's really realistic. I know so many people from backgrounds just like this who know their surroundings aren't normal but just have to act like it is. 70s New York was also really interesting to me in this regard, and the stories I've heard have been so fascinating. I have family members who lived through the urban decay period, and it's almost dystopian. I'm not sure if this was the intent of the devs here, and I doubt it to be honest, but I find this to be such a fun and interesting way to look at it. I barely remember anything past Tucson, which is good for you guys, as it is officially now a sorta kinda blind playthrough. The enemies are super creative and unique, and this is the point where battles stop being generally tedious, except for when I get possessed. That's super obnoxious. Moving away from the urban decay connection I made earlier, there is a lot of wackiness to be found despite the gloomy setting. Everyone's treating this whole zombie situation like some goofy little thing. They're chilling outside, complaining about zombies like they're some sort of pest, and not something that will literally tear open your skull like a birthday present and feast on your brain like it's a Thanksgiving dinner. Yeah, sometimes I wish I was this unbothered. Oh hey look, we're gonna take a picture in front of a damn grave because that's super respectful, right? I didn't mean I wanted to be this unbothered. Have some decorum, Ness, jeez. Ness meets with the hooker for a reason I'm not going to question and decides to follow her into the hotel for reasons I'm not going to ask about. We're subsequently cornered and it seems all hope is lost, but not yet. It's about time we have a little change in scenery. I'm a bit tired of America, especially of all these dilapidated buildings and zombies running around. How about we take a short detour to Foggyland. Winters, aka somewhere in the UK. It has Stonehenge, so it's safe to assume it's somewhere in England. And we also seem to be at a boarding school, which is a very European thing. I'd never heard an American dude say something like, oh yeah, my parents shipped me off to boarding school. Just doesn't happen. We wake up as Jeff in this school located in the middle of nowhere. It's very cold and snowy, but kind of cozy in a way, despite the isolation. As we explore, I kinda notice a phenomenon in this game that I have yet to bring up, and that's those FU moments. There are a lot of moments that flagrantly waste your time and take pleasure in it, but it's always intentional. For a SNES game, it's remarkably convenient in most of its aspects, but some parts are deliberately designed to say, F you. We're wasting your time because it is funny. Getting the bike and literally not being able to use it for the rest of the game until maybe the end. Waiting in waterfall for 3 minutes for the password. Dude, I went to grab a snack and went to the bathroom during this part and it still wasn't done. And here, where this guy gives you a key and it straight up just doesn't work. So you have to go back to get another key after you wasted your time trying to open a bunch of lockers with a key that doesn't even work. I quite admire this. It fits the game's humor in a way. I never get annoyed when this blatant disrespect for my time shows up from time to time. It never gets excessive, and they're always funny in an odd way. I never find myself laughing about it, but I smirk sometimes while wondering what I'm doing with my life. We finally leave the boarding school with Tony and meet this cool ass bubble monkey. I love how disorganized his movements are. So much personality in this game is unreal. The more isolated setting of winters perfectly captures how the season itself feels for me. The season winter feels so empty, and I myself am more isolated just due to being in my room more. Despite the amount of beauty to be found in the season, it can be a little maddening due to the lack of variety around it. But there are these little special moments that make it feel completely worth it. Special moments that couldn't happen anytime else. And I see this reflected in one of the most iconic moments in the series. Riding Tessie It's really a beautiful moment, so serene and relaxing. Meeting Tessie is so significant to me, despite having minimal story purpose. It shows everyone in this game has a story. The group of Tessie watchers being ecstatic after they finally get a glimpse of the majestic beast. It adds so many layers to the environment. Everyone has their own journey, and these men just completed theirs. It's such a beautiful moment. It's funny because after this majestic ass scene, we had to go through an absolutely garbage dungeon. But it's bad on purpose, and it comes back later on in a pretty significant way. We meet Jeff's dad, who hasn't seen us for 10 years because he's too busy with work or something. Dude, you live like a mile away from my school, what are you even talking about? So far, Paula is the only party member in Earthbound with a loving father for some reason. Dr. Andonuts helps us get to Threed in this orb, and we get a glimpse of some of the areas we'll travel to in the future. When Jeff meets with Ness and Paula, there are no explanations, he just joins them on this adventure because it's his calling. I grind up Jeff so he can head off to Saturn Valley without a hitch. Before Saturn Valley is another intermediary area no one remembers. It gives good XP though, and the enemies aren't annoying, so that's good. And after traversing this part, it's time to move on to the place itself. You know what it is. I mean, you should already know, I name dropped it earlier. Saturn Valley is iconic. Even people who have never played the game know this song. Mr. Saturn is probably more well known than either Ness or Lucas are. My second piece of pixel art ever was a Mr. Saturn fan art, and I didn't even know what Earthbound was at that point. I called it Miss Venus. Truly a modern day work of art, huh? The name doesn't even make all that much sense. Why Venus? Why not Miss Jupiter or something? They're both gas giants and they're also right next to each other. Saturn Valley has a nice little stony society going over here. Well, they have ATMs and phones, but whatever. The hospital here is free and the inn are also free, which is cool. Better healthcare than America, am I right? The text font is also based off of the creator's daughter's handwriting, which is really sweet, but also kind of funny. Like I mentioned earlier, there's this 3-minute password moment, which I think is the perfect time to talk about my thoughts so far for 3 minutes. Tucson is easily the most annoying part of the game. I really like it, but the tedious mechanics are at their worst here. On it is one of the best areas in all of gaming, and Threed is Threed, no complaints here. On a side note, I have a few interpretations on Ness's journey. I think the areas On It, Tucson, and Threed are a progression of unfamiliarity. On It is homely, warm, and inviting. It's Ness's hometown, and is a joy to explore. Tucson is almost melancholy, familiar, but also far away from home. This will also usually be the first area where Ness feels homesickness. Threed is just dark, disturbing, and dilapidated, a completely unfamiliar place to him, and he's so far from home where everything feels unfamiliar. I can relate to Ness a lot. I was 17 when I first started making this video, and I'll probably be 19 by the time this comes out. I too am away from home, and I feel like I'm in Tucson right now. I've made a lot of friends here, but there's a bizarreness to being alone for the first time. I'm meeting types of people I've never interacted with before, and the atmosphere is noticeably different from what I'm used to. And this is what Earthbound portrays. Life may still be bizarre and scary at points, but it gets less scary when you have friends and loved ones by your side. Once Paula and Jeff join the party, things get much less frightening. We immediately go from the dark and scary Threed to this beautiful and goofy valley full of these odd creatures. Life is a lot more lighthearted when you have people by your side to take care of you. After this is Fourside, which is a huge city but feels smaller than the other areas because you're not really alone anymore. But once Paula is kidnapped, it becomes unsettling and labyrinthian. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not go too far into the future. There's a lot of meaning in Earthbound that I think people miss. Happy Happy Village is what originally made me realize that this is more than just a quirky Nintendo RPG. It's a satirical comedy on many aspects of American society, but it's also a commentary on the human condition, a commentary on good and evil. It doesn't do it in a generic Hollywood way where it's beaten over your head and not nuanced at all. No one is born evil, but everyone is susceptible to it, some more susceptible to it than others. I think Porky and Ness are a perfect example of this. Ness has loving parents, despite the shit it threw at his dad earlier. On the other hand, we have Porky, who as far as we know, only has his brother. His parents just don't give a crap about them, it seems. At worst, at the beginning of the game, Porky's just a petulant child, but continually stronger forces in his life influence him to do immoral things. It really brings into question the idea of nature versus nurture. It's a common sentiment to say that power can corrupt even good people, but for a while, there's been a lot of pushback regarding that statement, with many people asserting the idea that power only shows who you are underneath. And Porky's situation in general is really murky. It's easy to see him as being this asshole-ish kid at heart because that's all we've ever seen him as. So it's hard to say whether or not this is his nature and if his home life is only exacerbating his actions. And even then, his home life gives him no excuse to do these horrible things, but I think we have to remember that he's still a kid. People regard him as this sort of entity separated from the human race, but he started out as just a kid. I know it's easy to lose sympathy for Porky, but I always remember this every now and then. Even in his final state, which I won't spoil for Mother 3, he's stuck in this childish mindset. Although it's a lot more creepy and less forgivable given the fact that he's taken the appearance of an old-ass man, which really symbolizes the loss of both his humanity and his childlike innocence. His petulance is no longer cute or annoying, it's disgusting and horrific. Also, he's under the influence of Gygas, but I'm not talking about that part, okay? Later, okay? Just wait. That's all I'm gonna say for this segment, so let's go back and kick some belchy ass. After the waterfall, we enter a factory. The enemies in this dungeon are super easy and give a ton of XP. Too bad I defeated Master Belch and realized all the enemies in the dungeon disappear after that. So I have to grind the regular enemies, which are annoying to battle and give less XP. Feels bad, man. Despite the factory being another generally forgotten area, Master Belch is pretty well known. I couldn't even tell you why. He's just associated with this game despite having not that much prominence in it. Master Belch is a gross relic of the 90s, an amalgamation of all the lowbrow humor that was popular among teen boys at the time. Back at Southern Valley, we drink ourselves some coffee to get high. I feel like coffee is a stand-in for alcohol because there's also a cafe later that's just straight up a bar. Man, now that I'm looking at it, it feels like so much has happened already, but this is only the beginning of the game. On it, Tucson, Threed, Peaceful Rest Valley, Saturn Valley, Happy Village. So much has occurred, and it feels like a packed adventure already. After Saturn Valley, in my opinion, is where the game becomes an official masterpiece. It was already amazing, but it wasn't a 10 out of 10. For me, it becomes a 10 out of 10 once we get the forest side. Oh, wait, I forgot a few things actually. Let's wait for our drunkenness to subside and get back to the video soon. A lot happens between Threed and Foreside, so how about we make this quick? Rapid fire round, everybody. I toppled the third sanctuary boss, but I realized I forgot the second, so I walked back to beat it. 3 turns back to normal, and despite it being a normal urban area, the damage of its past is still evident. We take a bus to Foreside, but there's a traffic jam and I have to walk there. On the way, there's a store that says drugs, but it only sells regular items. Talk about false advertising. The enemies in the desert are super deadly and dangerous, but I really like their designs. Okay, and finally, now we can go to the Big Apple, my favorite area in the game. Well, sorta, you'll see later. The Big Apple, the real New York, the good parts of New York, with a cafe which is obviously just a bar, but they needed to get past censors. A cool museum, drunks on the street, and a corrupt mayor with a violent police, the true New York experience. As I mentioned earlier, the 70s and 80s for New York weren't all that great, and 90s New York was kind of a revitalization of the city, despite the fact that the crack epidemic was still in full force. Foreside definitely invokes the 90s New York vibes, the music which feels so grand and metropolitan, the layout of the area itself with all the stores and people roaming, both good and bad. Here, Porky is now Master Porky, and his father is relishing in the money he has now that his son is in power. We visit the Runaway Five and it turns out they're in debt again. You know the adage, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice. You deserve to be in debt for the rest of your life, I'm not helping you again. I don't really have a choice in the matter anyway. The children yearn for the mines because that's where we're going. Before I continue, I have to say this. There are 5 really great Earthbound videos on YouTube, and I must admit that mine is easily the 3rd best one. After watching all 5 of them, I can attest to this fact. They're all pretty easy watches too. I finished them off all really fast. The site itself is unremarkable and kinda mazy, but not as bad as people say it is. Also, there's a rope. Yeah, college is making me feel that right now. The Runaway Five are finally free, but guess who's not free? Paula. Again. With her gone, the tone turns so sour. Like I said, losing a friend can be scary, and what once seemed familiar can turn alienating really quickly. Both literally and figuratively in Ness's case, because he's literally fighting aliens now. It doesn't last super long, but it's really unsettling. It makes the rest of Forsyth feel dangerous without Paula being there. And it only gets gloomier with Everdred allegedly passing away. This is the last time we ever see him alive, but there are hints suggesting that it was all a hoax. The game just took such a violent, dark turn, and it'll only get scarier as we go to my real favorite area in the game. I adore Moonside. Oh my gosh, I could gush about Moonside for hours. I love the music, I love the dialogue, I love the enemies, I love the vibe, I love its mystique, I love how disorienting it all is. This is one of the most mysterious locations in the game. There's a genuine debate going on, questioning if this whole segment was just Ness and Jeff on a drug trip. Not even a joke theory, that's like a plausible thing. I mean, the area ends with both of you waking up in a warehouse, and some dialogue implying you and Jeff were passed out on the floor the entire time. I personally think it was a drug trip too, specifically with the spiked coffee. There's an enemy that's just literally spilled coffee. It doesn't show Ness or Jeff drinking any coffee prior to entering, and it could be a stretch, but I think it represents what was behind the trip in the first place. It could also be the fact that the Many statue created this as an illusion, but I want to be different, gosh darn it. Let me create my own wild theories about trivial stuff in the game. The Many statue is more plausible because they snap out of it once the statue is broken, but I don't know. Interpretation, baby. I like to think it's both. Both is good. I'm thinking the drugged coffee made this 10 times more disorienting and unpleasant than it already would be. People often say that Moonside did the vaporwave thing before vaporwave existed, but that's a bit unfair. I'd say it's more postmodernism if anything. Just like with anything in Earthbound, its nonsense has reason within it. And that can be seen so well through the music of Moonside. In fact, speaking of music in general, I genuinely love how this game uses music. So I think it's time to segue to Pix's Music Corner, the first and last time you'll see this segment in my videos. Never forget, in an alternate universe, I'd probably be a rap video essay channel. I've been wanting to talk about music for so long. I've been obsessed with music as of late. I started listening to Motley Crue, the Beach Boys, Black Sabbath. I've been missing out on so much. One big thing Earthbound is known for in regards to music is the fact that some of the songs in this game actually sample other older songs, or at the very least closely resemble them.
Nic se tady nehýbá, hlavně, že nejsou sami.
Most of the music is wholly unique, and I could talk about each track for hours. The hotel theme is energetic, but also kinda unsettling. It's a place of rest, but it's also not home, and I do sometimes get an unsettling feeling staying in hotels myself. Threed has an absolutely eerie theme in general. Pokey's House is a really gosh darn weird and unsettling song, especially the more you get to know about him. It starts out relatively normal, while also kind of being a bit erratic, but then it absolutely devolves into this weird cacophony of sounds. It's the theme of a broken home, the awkwardness Ness must feel being here. I know I've been to a fair share of houses where the parents just straight up seem like not great people. They act super kind and cordial to you, but treated their kids in not great ways. It's really awkward actually. Makes me want to leave or something. I really don't like being in those types of places. Home Sweet Home is relaxing. Listen to this while on the beach or something. It's heavenly. Friendly neighbors gives me the vibe of a Saturday evening where you don't know what you're doing. You're going around meeting random people and doing random things because you're bored. Snowman is the perfect winter song. I used to live in Canada and the winters there were amazing. I truly miss seeing snow before Christmas and just relaxing with my family going to festivals and staying out at events until midnight where Christmas would hit. So many of these songs invoke a sense of nostalgia you can't get anywhere else. It hits extra hard for me as an American, as all the environments and sounds are so freaking familiar to me. I miss not caring about what other people thought, and just messing around on a lazy Saturday riding my bike far away from home. In fact, the bike theme invokes the feeling of the breeze blowing on your face as you playfully ride that bike around town. I miss it, but there's never really an end to anything. Of course, my childhood is quickly escaping my grasp, it's basically gone at this point, but there's always something else to look forward to. Youth is never really gone per se. I can still look back on it, my opinions on it will still change over time, and I feel like Earthbound embodies that. Earthbound is the essence of childhood. It's the world through the eyes of a kid, and it's gonna seem super wacky and nonsensical. Maybe things that would be a huge problem to a more matured brain come across as trivial to a child. And this can be even reflected in real life. I played this when I was a lot younger, and I didn't notice a lot of things that I notice nowadays. Another song that hugely sticks out to me in Moonside is Boris Cocktail. It reminds me of something from Everywhere at the End of Time, an album meant to portray the progression of Alzheimer's disease. And in Boris Cocktail, you can hear bits of the Star Spangled Banner playing in these parts. Kind of a more messed up version of it though. Hearing our national anthem like this is always unsettling. There's an underlying fear of a more sinister threat at hand, a once dignified anthem being distorted like this by something. Something much larger than humanity. This song for me is the theme of societal decay. There are also a lot of standout battle tracks as well. For example, Pokey Means Business, which greets us with an 8-bit tune only to blow us away with this almost metal sound. It sounds insane for the SNES, genuinely so badass. The Gygas theme, which gives me chills every time I hear it. It's so eerie, but also has actual listening potential. Sometimes I have it on while I'm studying. It's less of a song and more of a sound really, but it's just so captivating. I remember when I first played this game, I was kinda disappointed that the battle themes weren't all that crazy and hardcore. You know, like Final Fantasy or Breath of Fire with lots of energy. But honestly, I think this was a good route to take. I wouldn't listen to it on its own, but I think it accompanies the battles in this game really well. It'd be kinda odd to have this badass metal track playing while I'm fighting a moldy rat. We can touch on music a bit more in the future when it's more relevant. Right now, let's get back to the game. This was a nice little break, huh? End of Pix's Music Corner. Forever. Or unless I start a music channel in the future, but when is that ever gonna happen, am I right? Moonside was shorter than I remember, but it was still a good area. I really love the design of the Many statue in particular. It's meant to resemble an Oscar, which I think is pretty funny, acting as a little jab at Hollywood. It's not rare to see movie stars become corrupted by the lifestyle they're exposed to. And the Many statue / Oscar acts as a symbol of corruption under the nice facade presented to the world. After our weird trip is over, we meet this charred monkey who leads us to a monkey cave. A lot of people say this is their least favorite part of the game, but to me it's not that annoying. It's a bit tedious walking back and forth, but it's par for the course with Earthbound at this point. It definitely could be described as an FU moment, but it's more drawn out and does have purpose within progressing the story. We get the yogurt dispenser because apparently Mr. Montoya wants it for whatever reason, and we also learn how to teleport, which is awesome. Love when older RPGs have this. I wish it was more common. I don't know why, but my first thought when seeing Mr. Montoya was that he was a really weird Bill Clinton caricature. In my head, I give him a Clinton voice when I'm reading his dialogue. The rooms preceding Montoya's office weren't anything special, another forgettable area, although the clumsy robot enemy is decently iconic. It is an annoying fight though, but it's nothing we can't handle. Plus the Runaway 5 help us by unplugging the bot, so I'll give them props for that. We find Paula with Montoya and he completely caves in and blames the Many statue for his behavior. And that doesn't sound wrong, but he was probably corrupt before that. Literally everything in his office is gold plated, I think. That's literal corruption right there. I'm sorry. Also, I wrote this part of the script back in like 2024, but our new president's office looks exactly like that. I'm not even trying to get political, it's just really funny because he gave everything a gold plated makeover and it looks exactly like how it does in Earthbound. Montoli gives us a helicopter to get to Summers, but Porky takes it before we can, and it's yet another FU moment. We also get a call from Apple Kid, and it's really charming. We've made so many friends on our journey already, and we're only halfway through. The Runaway 5, Everdread, Bubble Monkey, Orange Kid, begrudgingly. In fact, he calls us too about a lame-ass invention. I appreciate the sentiment at least. We have to backtrack to 3 with the Runaway 5, and I do have to say that backtracking in Earthbound never gets too annoying. I hate backtracking in RPGs specifically, but it's never bad here. There's always something new to do every time you go back, and the devs ensured it's as convenient as possible. It also makes the world feel more connected in general. You never realize how small Eagle Land is until you look at it fully. But backtracking somehow makes it feel larger. I really love it. We get on the Skyrunner and head to Dr. Endnut's lab. I love the flying sequences. Passing by every location we've completed is so cool. It makes me want to tear up, man. Back in Winters, we meet a married Bubble Monkey. I'm so happy for him, and like every great marriage, he doesn't seem at all happy. We also fought the 4th Sanctuary boss, which is this mushroom, and it's actually kinda hard, even though I'm over leveled to hell and back. Once we've retrieved the 4th town, we finally get to head for Summers. Now here's the weird thing, I always assumed Summers was an Eagle Land, but some dialogue I saw recently says otherwise. This guy in the hotel implies I'm a foreigner, so now I'm trying to find out where I am specifically. You see, I always thought Summers was somewhere in California, it just gives off those vibes, so figuring out it's not in Eagle Land kinda threw me off a bit. If I were to pick any particular location, I might say southern France or something, but the layout and everything still feels distinctly American, Eagle-Landian. I am definitely overthinking this, but southern France is my most confident choice. Their beaches are pretty cool, and it also features a pretentious, snooty club, perfectly in character for France. Also, just to the south of us is Scarab, which I'm assuming is based on Morocco or something, or maybe Algeria because it fits the whole French thing. One of the things I am fond of Earthbound for is that a lot of the references and commentary Earthbound makes really hasn't aged. In fact, that's the thing about 90s media in general, is how well it manages to age. When something takes place in the 80s or 2000s, you can tell it's distinctly from that era. But when it comes to the 90s, I feel like the things portrayed in that media are kinda indistinguishable from today. Maybe it's because 90s nostalgia has been super in vogue ever since I was a kid and it still hasn't died down yet, so it seems pretty normal to me. But ever since I was growing up, I consumed a lot of 90s media, and it never occurred to me that it was actually, in the 90s. Earthbound could come out today and you honestly wouldn't really need to change anything. I feel that phenomenon in Summers. Yeah, it's not officially part of Eagle Land, but it's basically every touristy beach town in America. Ridiculously high prices, rude people in areas that are meant to be relaxing, a pretentious exclusive club. This guy who drinks iced coffee like a wine snob, it's just hilarious, I love it. And the way some of these characters look, they look distinctly American, okay? Not him though, that's Hitman. Hitman's story is so tragic, a once vital part of the game, now obsolete due to the internet. This man has a lot of dialogue, but I never actually went out of my way to talk to him. He has hints for basically every major story event, even the ones that seem super obvious. And just like basically everyone in this game, Hitman also gets funny dialogue. It's great how every single recurring character has their chance to shine in this game. After we acquire the secret number from the pretentious club, we get a call from Jeff's friend Tony. He straight up breaks the 4th wall, no fucks given, and directly addresses the player, even asks for my name. Obviously my real name is Pixa, but this is just weird. I'm sure it'll be super important to the story later on, but I've never seen a game do something so brazen like this. Not even Undertale did something this bold. After that, I talked to the sailor thinking it'll advance the story, but we instead get this sad dialogue about his failing marriage, which also helps advance the story, so thanks for that. We go back to the pretentious ass club, aka the Stoic Club, and the devs are obviously taking a jab at those pseudo-intellectual artsy people, like this guy who talks about capitalism in a super shallow way with this girl who's pretending to listen. I've seen this in real life so many times, and it's so funny to see it in a game like this. If Earthbound came out in 2025, it'd be a bookstore full of dudes with tote bags, labubus, and matcha in their hands. They'd all be reading Little Woman, Das Kapital, and Michelle Obama's autobiography while listening to Leve. But no Sabrina Carpenter because she's part of the patriarchy or something. I don't know, man. I'm not tapped in. The main attraction of this place is a rock and the main course is water. No sign of intelligent life in this area. These types of environments in real life do tend to be dull and mind-numbing, so I'm glad they could visualize it in my quirky little Nintendo game. This is funnily enough a critique on how performative a lot of the art spaces are. They tend to sacrifice any personality and accessibility for pretentious, more abstract stuff that doesn't really mean anything when you dig deeper. And yeah, I would say this is really relevant, somehow even more relevant today actually. Outside of the club, we talk to the seller's wife, and she gives us a magic cake to eat, and it gets us high. Our brains might be irreparably damaged by all the substances we've taken at the ripe old age of 13. The aftermath of Earthbound will be Ness in his 30s, hooked on coffee and shrooms while wasting away in a trailer park east of Tucson. During our high, we finally get to play as the last character to join our party. Pooh. His name is stupid, but the developers are fully aware of that. When I first played this game, I assumed it was an unfortunate translation. But this place is literally called Pooh Palace, just look at it. You cannot tell me this wasn't intentional. Funniest thing I've ever seen in my life, man. This place is called Dalam, and I'm guessing it's somewhere in Tibet, or maybe Myanmar, I don't know. Most likely Tibet though. The name of the palace makes me think it's Tibet cause Pooh Palace, the real life place is called Patala Palace. I feel like there's a correlation there. Dalam is super cozy, actually one of the smallest areas in the game. It's mainly a floating piece of land on these pink clouds, and it's really atmospheric. I wouldn't mind living here, and while we are here, Pooh is tasked to learn the art of Mu, which we do learn. And after a trial during meditation, he joins us. It's much more simple than Winter's. I would have liked more from Pooh's introduction, but it is what it is. I think they were going to do more with this area, but time wouldn't allow for it. Dalam is a really cool place, so I'm glad they found space for it later on in the game. Plus the concept art is so dreamlike, it's so cool, I love it. But yeah, that was basically it. Pooh subchapter over. After meeting Pooh, Earthbound becomes sort of open-ended, mainly in just fighting the Sanctuary bosses. Without knowing what to do, this small section of the game can be a bit tedious as it leaves you to your own devices and you have to figure out what to do yourself. In fact, you can just not do the Sanctuary bosses and head straight to Scarab for the next area. The 5th Sanctuary boss is in the sewers under a museum, which is a giant ugly rat. Yeah, this is definitely New York. With the 5th sound, we head off to Dalam, and you see, in Dalam, there was this weird place with these bunny statues blocking the entrance. You need a carrot key to get past it, which leads to the 6th Sanctuary boss, who is pathetically easy. Little side note, the Tengu enemy is one of the most memorable enemies in the game to me for some reason. It's like the first enemy I think of when somebody mentions Earthbound enemies. I remember fighting the boss in my mom's car for the first time on my 3DS after picking up my grandma for a vacation, and I don't know why, but that memory is so vivid. Back in Summers, we meet with the sailor again, whose marriage we saved, and he sells us off to a place called... excuse me? What is this? A kraken? I didn't have too much trouble taking it down. Again, this is seen as one of the harder bosses in the game, but I beat it pretty easily. In fact, I remember it being easy my first playthrough as well, and I didn't even grind then. Oh, it's because the captain threw his slippers at the beast, that's why. He really helped a lot, now the mighty kraken's defeated. Once the kraken is taken down, we can finally head off and land in Scaraba. My first playthrough, Scaraba, is when I officially stopped playing the game. In general, I just hate desert settings in games. It's bland and dry with little room for variation. I can't think of one desert location I thoroughly enjoyed in an RPG. They've always got lame ass enemies too, like snakes and lions. Ooh, so spooky. And the dungeons are always pyramids or tombs. It gets old. Not saying it's bad here, but I've seen it plenty of times. I'm also not a huge fan of the generic desert music they have playing while in desert areas, which is not a diss to any of the actual music they base those songs off of. I like that kind of music, I vibe with it a lot. I can put you on some good ass Sahel tunes. But a lot of games just don't do them justice, it comes off as a pale imitation. Here though, I actually think it sounds pretty good, better than most games I've played. I think it's because the abstractness of Earthbound's music is still intact, which gives it a unique sound. It doesn't feel like a pale imitation of that music, instead it feels like a different type of take on it. If I'm being completely serious, I just stopped playing Earthbound here because life got in the way. I was busy then, and I forgot to look back and finish the game. It just really doesn't help that I was stuck in this boring ass desert area. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. The settlement is also one of the more forgettable towns in the game, really not helping my case here and me not liking desert things. Compared to the other areas, most of Scaraba seems half-baked, which is ironic because this place is hot. I hate heatstroke so much. Which heatstroke is a status effect that is very prevalent in these hot areas, and it is super annoying. Another thing to add to the pile is I'd say this is the first and only part of Earthbound that could be more than slightly confusing without a guide. Luckily, I remember what I need to do and enter the pyramid with no sweat. Well, actually with lots of sweat because again, it's hot as hell. Something I noticed battling in this area is that the battle numbers in Earthbound don't get very big. HP max is out at 999, which is rookie numbers in most other games, like Final Fantasy's endgame, which is like 3000 to 5000 HP. Same with damage. 120 damage is generally the average when using regular attacks, and with spells it's around 300 to 400 if you use them effectively. It keeps things simple and it doesn't let the numbers get inflated. Yeah, in other RPGs it does feel good doing 50,000 damage, but here it allows for some areas to still be challenging even after grossly over leveling. And despite what I said earlier about desert settings, I love the atmosphere of the pyramid. The interior itself can be annoying to traverse though, especially your first time, and the battles can be deadly if you're not prepared, but luckily I was. After the pyramid, there's another dungeon, one that calls back all the way to Winters. Dungeon Man. Also, Pooh ditched us for a bit. I'm totally not salty about that. He literally just got here and he just leaves? He can just do that? Okay. I really love Dungeon Man. It's a parody and mockery of dungeons in most RPGs. It's not an actual serious thing and it's pretty meta. It calls out pointless tropes and makes fun of itself a lot here. Dungeon Man is actually Brick Road. He's the dude from Winters who made the really bad dungeon. And even though he made the dungeon, I like him. He's funny. The music in this area hurts my ears though. He's not a good musician. His dungeon design has really improved since we last saw him. Again, I love how everyone has their own lives outside the main story. While we were on our journey to save the world, Dungeon Man was out here perfecting his craft at creating the best dungeon this world has ever seen. It's random ass character development like this that just makes the world feel so alive. Also, despite it being really unorthodox, the interior of Dungeon Man has an oddly cozy atmosphere. It's really fun to explore and you're never in danger, so traversing it feels like you're at an amusement park. After exiting, we lead him to the water and he lets us borrow his submarine to go to a very mysterious, almost otherworldly location. It never occurred to me, but we're in the home stretch now. This part of the game is extremely unfamiliar to me, so we've truly plunged into darkness. The deep darkness. Deep darkness has always been a little bit of an enigma to me. I'm aware of most of the areas in Earthbound, even the ones I haven't experienced yet, but deep darkness is a place I never even knew existed. It's really maze-like and swampy and murky. It will certainly test your patience at points. One recurring phenomenon that I haven't mentioned yet is the Mole Playing Rough enemy, which the Mole Playing Rough is a singular enemy that randomly appears in places too good for it. My theory is that it's disgruntled mole from the second sanctuary location that keeps trying to get revenge on us. As I explore the maze, I kill this Master Belch clone. He gives us the Casey bat, which I promptly throw away. It's really strong but has a 75% miss rate. The name is a pun on the poem Casey at the Bat. A cautionary tale about an arrogant baseball player who is so in over his head that he purposely misses the first 2 pitches and then strikes out in the last by accident, costing his team the win. And the item, I guess, is a cheeky reference to that poem. While fighting the Belch clone, Pooh comes back to save her asses with PK Starstorm, one of the best spells in the game. We meet with these budget Mr. Saturns in a cave, but they're all too shy to talk to us. Tendas. Admittedly, they're pretty cute little guys. There's nothing more we can do here, so we go back to Winters for now, and this is where the enemies officially start looking more, well, alien. The woolly shambler is especially unsettling to me. I always make sure to kill it first. But from here on out, things are going to get more and more insane than I could even imagine, so I think we need to take a little break, some time to clear our minds before it gets deep. So, how about we go over some weird promos and ads for this game real quick? This is Pix's ad time, everybody. Earthbound has some weird as hell advertisements and promotional material. I mean, it's only fitting for the game it's based on. Also, I'm gonna put official merchandise here too, because why not? It's my video, am I right? There's this surreal as hell advertisement I probably showed footage of earlier in the video. Everything about it is so odd. It feels like a weird film project rather than an ad, especially with the chorus playing in the back. The slogan, "Guaranteed Masterpiece," is also pretty brazen, but I can attest to it. On the other side of the aisle, there's this ad of a guy talking just over some gameplay in a really monotone voice, a regular boring ass American advertisement. The sound mixing sucks too, I can barely hear him over the music. Then there's a Japanese ad where these bros in a restaurant just start singing. I have no idea what the hell is going on or what they're saying, but it's funnier if I keep it that way. It's absurdist and dumb, and I have no idea what's going on, but I like it. And there's also another ad with these same people in another restaurant talking about the game. Its humor is really quaint, honestly. I like it. I was expecting some more wacky, zany advertisements, but they showed a lot of restraint here. The American ad sucked though, that was completely soulless. That's as far as old advertisements go. The rest are just promos for re-releases and stuff, like this 3DS ad, which is super well made. But again, that's about it as far as Earthbound TV promos are concerned, unless you count this Mother 1+2 commercial as well. But there are a few other non-commercial related things, like the famous clay figures. When I first saw these, I assumed they were 3D renders, but no, they're just straight up clay models. There are a shocking amount of these too. It feels like as if every somewhat relevant character in the game had one created. A lot of them were shown in public for the first time at the game's 30th anniversary. They look so good. I want a remake in this style, to be honest. They were mainly used to depict certain enemies and characters in promotional material. A lot of them were shown off in public for the very first time at a 30th anniversary event, and let me just say, I left the fanbase at the worst possible time because I missed so much of this. I mean, look at this. Apparently they had a whole ass 30th anniversary concert. I missed this, okay? And I am mad about that. There are Runaway 5 plushes that come in this cool as hell box. How did I miss this? What the hell? There's a website for this? Okay, you know what? Let's do a rapid fire round from whatever I found on this thing. This really cute Nest figure, a calendar, a bag, a t-shirt, a Mr. Saturn plush, and I somehow missed all of this, and it goes on for like 5 more pages. This isn't even scripted anymore. How did I not know this was a thing? These Porky Bucks are really funny. Imagine tipping someone with these at a restaurant. There are a few other things pertaining to Earthbound that sorta kinda could be considered promotional material, but I'd say we've covered enough for now. Let's get this game over with already. You better be prepared, because I know I'm not. This is the very end of Pix's ad time forever. Maybe I might actually put it in the next video, I don't know yet. This is still all a work in progress. Back in Winters, we're supposed to head underground, and this is the "oh crap, we're nearing the end of the game" moment in my opinion. In this area, there's a sense of finality to it, a part of the game where you realize there's no turning back. The enemies here will give you quite a scare if you're not prepared, especially the boss at the end, who is pretty intimidating. At the start of the game, we were hiding behind Buzz to help fend off these guys, and now you're telling me we have to fight them? And aside from the whole vibes and everything I mentioned earlier, the area itself is kinda unremarkable and just another area most people would have forgotten about if it weren't for the impending feeling it gives you. This is also the place where you can get the infamous Sword of Kings, which I probably should explain or probably provide a little bit of context before I go further with this. So Earthbound has these things called 1 out of 128 chance item drops. They're items that will have a 1 out of 128 chance to drop from certain enemies. That's about 0.8% when rounded up, and it can range from innocuous things like healing items you can get anywhere, but it can also be super notable items like the aforementioned Sword of Kings. As a guy who used to shiny hunt Pokemon a lot back in the day, full odds shinies, old gens, you know, all that stuff, the 1 out of 128 chance didn't sound that bad at first. The issue though is, the Sword of Kings doesn't just drop from any old enemy in this area. It in fact drops from a Starman Super who is harder to come by down here and also, might I add, is a pain in the ass to kill. So yeah, I know most people don't get this item despite how well known and useful it is, and it's a shame too because this is actually Pooh's only equipable weapon, but it's also not necessary to beat the game. My friend suggested I grind for it if I wanted to be truly accurate to the title, but I don't hate myself. Pooh is odd in the fact that he can only equip items regarded as the of kings items. Bracer of Kings, Cloak of Kings, Diadem of Kings, and obviously the Sword of Kings. The rest are relatively easy to find, but again, Pooh stands out well enough on his own to the point where it's not really needed. After beating the area's boss, we're told by Apple Kid the location of the book Overcoming Shyness, so those Tendas will finally speak up. Once their social anxiety is cured, we're able to head down even deeper into the depths of Earth, but before that, let's trip balls. Funnily enough, this time it's tea instead of coffee, and it's actually the last true reflection like this we get in the game. Once again, you can only think back on how far you've come, and Earthbound does a fantastic job at making the adventure seem longer than it actually is. I mean, in comparison, I had 66 hours on Final Fantasy VI before I beat that game. Earthbound is minuscule compared to that. And don't even get me started on modern RPGs too, oh my gosh. But the devs did a really good job at playing up the vastness of this world. That's why I believe those so-called intermediate areas are so vital to the narrative as a whole. Despite the fact that I hardly remember them when reflecting on the game, I subconsciously attribute those parts as contributing to the journey. And it's always a surprise that whenever I replay this game, there are certain areas where I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot this existed. Not every part of an adventure is gonna be memorable, and I feel like too many RPGs try to make every area feel distinct, which isn't bad, mind you, but those areas in Earthbound, despite how pointless they may seem, still serve a purpose at the end of the day. And the longer the game goes on, the less huge the past areas will seem in comparison. I remember when I thought Onett was a huge bustling town, but now it's minuscule compared to everything else we've seen. And that's only going to become even more evident as we go deeper. Before leaving, we get the Tendakraut, which is noted as smelling awful. I mention this because it's sort of significant to me. Back when I was working on the Earthbound fan game, the leader of our group went by Mr. Tendakraut, and for some reason, it never occurred to me that it was an Earthbound reference. He disappeared off the face of the earth and I haven't seen him in 4 years, so seeing Tendakraut was a nice little reminder of all the fun we had back in the day. In the Japanese version, this item was actually more so based on a durian than the German dish sauerkraut. But I guess they changed it because Americans have the irresistible urge to crap on Germans for some reason. The area below Tenda Village isn't notable, just another cave area, but it's the part after that that's important. And no, I don't mean the 7th Sanctuary boss, which I do beat. When proceeding to the next area, we see this neon wall that supposedly displays Ness's thoughts on it. At first, its inclusion in the game sorta baffled me, and it still sorta does. It's one of the more iconic visuals in Earthbound, but its true meaning is a bit elusive. Earthbound at this point has increasingly tried to separate the character of Ness from the actual player themselves. When I first booted up this game, I saw Ness as a vessel, a void husk that I would live vicariously through. But the further we go on, the more they develop Ness as being his own person. You could argue this separation between Ness and the player starts all the way back when the first picture is taken. I know I was taken aback when I first saw Ness smile and do a peace sign. I never told him to show emotions. The first time it becomes obvious is when Tony asks the player what their actual name is. I first thought this was some dumb meta joke, but it actually has a deeper meaning. This is later asked once again by the leader of Tenda Village. I didn't think this would have any significance, so I put my real name as Pixa and Ness's name as Pixa, so it got really confusing. That's on me actually. The separation of Ness and the player reaches a peak in Magicant when we see the inner workings of Ness's mind. Ness has his own perceptions of people separate from your own, his own thoughts, his own memories. You are Ness, but Ness is not you. You're meant to express yourself through Ness, but Ness is still independent of you. This mention of you, the player, truly got me to think about the character of Ness as a whole. This entire time, I thought of him as an empty vessel, so if he wasn't that, then what was he? I didn't think to analyze his patterns or behaviors because I thought I would just be analyzing myself. You know the idea of nature versus nurture I brought up forever ago? Well, in a while, we're going to get a glimpse into both the environment Ness has been exposed to, as well as the thoughts and memories of Ness, as well as who he truly is and what he fears most. The wall for me is the emotional climax of the game. There's no crazy action or depressingly sad moment, it just gets me. The wall is kinda meant to act as a precursor to Magicant, showing that Ness is more than just a vessel. Before we actually get to go to Magicant though, we're gonna talk about some badass dinosaurs. The Lost Underworld would be so cool to play as a kid, and it's still cool to play now. I love world maps, and this section reminds me of the Chrono Trigger world map, and I adore the Chrono Trigger world map, man. The music is so serene. Enemies here are dinosaurs, and an eagle ball with really good cheekbones. Down here are a few Tenda villages sparsely scattered around. One of them mentions they only came down here to avoid the awkwardness of the Tendas above them. Imagine being so awkward that people are willing to risk their lives every day just to stay away from you. This is another little Earthbound moment that could be turned into a whole story if you look into it enough. Why are these Tendas talkative but the other ones above aren't? Will they ever migrate back up once they realize the Tendas have fixed their social skills? And is that one talkative Tenda above one that chose to stay behind for personal reasons? There's so much to speculate. I headed into a fire spring area which contains nothing crazy but the 8th and final sanctuary boss. And it beat my ass, let me tell you. Took 2 tries to get this thing down. Its first phase is the Firehound, but then it solidifies and becomes an absolute hassle to kill. After finally chipping away at the Diamond Dog, all the melodies begin to work in tandem with each other, in harmony, one by one, which causes Ness to remember things. A lot of things. Ness was naked in the Japanese version. I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. This is like the most common piece of Earthbound trivia ever. I knew this before I even knew Earthbound existed. It's the Earthbound equivalent of saying, hey, did you know that Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually a reskin of Doki Doki Panic? People just think naked Ness is really funny for some reason. Americans would probably find it creepy, but it had a different meaning in Japan. It's meant to represent purity, which Ness is at its core, or at least what we've known him as. I always liked the way Ness's mind is portrayed aesthetically. It feels very Ness-like. It's trippy but not in an unsettling way. Everyone talks to you with a level of compassion or goofiness. And I love the changing color palettes. This is a dissection of Ness's inner thoughts, and despite that, despite all the sweet sentiments and goofy visuals, I can't help but feel unsettled by the idea of Magicant. None of these people are real. They're only versions of people that Ness imagines in his head, and at the end of the day, it feels empty, and the deeper you go into Magicant, the more you realize how barren it is. When Flying Man, a temporary party member that comes along with you, dies later on, it's truly revealed how unsettling it is as you realize you're alone. And this is coming from Ness's relatively pure mind. Imagine delving into Porky's, that would be genuinely horrific. At the end, we fight Ness's nightmare, which looks like the Many statue. Now we already know the statue embodies evil, and it manifests in Ness's mind as one of his biggest fears. I can't really tell if it's a representation of Ness's fear of evil, or if it's a seed of evil that's been planted in Ness's mind. Either way, it's just an ominous sight. When he's defeated, we liberate ourselves from all the inner forces keeping us back and power the heck up. We do a fetch quest for a meteorite to help fix Dr. Andinut's time machine. On it at this point is harrowing, crawling with starmen that will prove to be extremely dangerous. I don't like seeing such a peaceful town in shambles like this, especially since it's Ness's hometown too. With the help of Dr. Andinut's, we're able to go back in time, not through body, but through soul, as we take form of these goofy looking robots. The final area is a challenge. It's imperative that you get everybody through alive before fighting Gygus, and that's a hassle. The enemy that gave me the most trouble was the Ghost of Starman, who was PSI Starstorm, and that attack on its own is already scary in the fact that it can do huge damage to your entire party, but it also one-shot Paula every single time. In the Japanese version, it's referred to as Starman's ancestor, rather than the Ghost of Starman, so it's probably a primeval version of Starman. I love the design it has. In fact, in general, they get really creative with the different Starman variants. They're not too far off from the original design, but they're still unique enough to stand out. After trudging through this abyss for what seems like forever, I get prepared for the true horror we're about to face. The end. This is... Before I even talk about the fight, I have to talk about the most widely discussed theory in the entire history of this game. The Gygus is an aborted fetus theory. This has been debunked so many times, but it's still very interesting. Now, before I even talk about the theory itself, I need to talk about the inspiration for Gygus' final form, an also equally well-known piece of Earthbound trivia. As a young boy, Shigesato Itoi, director of the Mother series, claims he stumbled across an essay scene in the movie The Military Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty when he was a young child. The movie contains no such scene, but there is a scene that could resemble that without context. Even then, I can see how this could be traumatic for a kid, and he really channeled that here. The area right before fighting Gygus, many people have mentioned, resembles a birth canal, and when actually fighting him himself, his form begins to shape more and more to resemble a fetus. The creator himself has debunked this, and it's pretty much been confirmed that it's a result of Earthbound's background generator, but it's still very eerie. The fact that a fetus or a fetus-looking entity, something that is attributed to being helpless, could possess so much uncontrollable power is terrifying. I know it's not canon and not even the intentions of the creators, but I like to keep it in the back of my mind while playing. Furthermore, Gygus at this point is in the most vulnerable state we could realistically fight him in, and even then, he holds such imaginable amounts of power that we can't fight fairly. We also fight Porky here, and it's the last time Porky and Ness ever meet face to face. It's sad that the last time Ness ever sees Porky, he's become such a vile person. Porky disappears forever after this and travels forward in time. I have to note that unlike Ness and the others, Porky does take his physical form with him whenever he goes back or forward in time. That is why his skin is so pale here. He's essentially rotting away. The saddest thing about Porky to me though, is that no one will truly miss him apart from maybe Picky, his brother. Other than that, I can't think of a single person that would mourn Porky's disappearance, which is kind of depressing. I doubt even his parents would care all that much. Going back to the Gygus fight, the moment where he reveals his true form is absolutely iconic, one of the most memorable scenes in gaming. The music, combined with the sound effects and Gygus' weird, odd movements. The battle culminates and ends in a prayer. All the people you have met over the journey, praying for your safety, and the last person to pray, the very person who leads to the death of Gygus, that person is you. Not Ness, not your friends, it's you, the player. You, the player, are the one to finally take down this eldritch horror, and just like that, it's all over. Everyone leaves their separate ways, and you must take Paula home. I love the stark contrast between defeating Gygus and walking Paula home. It doesn't feel like we just came back from a huge journey on the surface. In fact, it feels like I'm just walking my friend home after a long day of playing with them outside, but the game allows you to reflect on your final moments before heading home too. Talking to people, saying your goodbyes, catching up with those around you, everyone's story wraps up in such a satisfying way. Even the Hitman has a conclusion that left me feeling honestly emotional. Everyone has a story, and ours just ended. After an entire game of seeing people completing their journeys, ours finally ended. We get home and see our family, and life continues on. Throughout the game, we all see these little journeys finished off, but we never really focus on what happens after that. And I guess that's the fun part. Sometimes, you don't really know what comes next. There's a sort of what now feeling in the air. And honestly, for some people, I think that's the most exciting part of all of this. And for people at the time, this would remain true, but I'm living in 2025, and there is some stuff after this actually. It gets pretty interesting. Picky comes and we get a letter from Porky taunting us, and the game ends with a "the end?" question mark. Eventually setting up for Mother 3, another journey that just gets absolutely heart-wrenching and depressing. I don't want to think about it, man. It came out over a decade later, so rip to all of those Earthbound fans who waited all that long and then didn't even get to play it because it didn't release in America, so they had to translate it. That sucks.
Earthbound is over, and everything is worse now. But even though I finished the game, we're not done yet. Just you wait.
Oh my gosh, hello, I wasn't expecting you to get here so fast. The video is not over yet. While I did binge Earthbound, I do have some cool extra stuff to show you that I want to talk about. I know it got kinda heavy near the end, so this will be a little nice respite. The calm after the storm, if you will. The actual video itself was super big, so I had to cut this into 2 parts. I'm not even lying, by the time I was done with the first part, I had unironically 6 gigabytes left on my computer. So yeah, that was actually a huge problem. If I didn't do this, my computer would probably crash trying to even open the project. So yeah, I'm fine now, but I just had to keep that in mind. Now this is where things get juicy, because most of you guys watching this are familiar with Earthbound already, so my commentary earlier may not have been the most mind-blowing thing to you. But I decided to go above and beyond in my frivolous media consumption and decided to scour the corners of the earth for material to insert into this video. I'm not going to talk about like everything I find because I want this video to be under 2 hours, but I'm going to talk about the most interesting stuff I found. Like I said, I am binging Earthbound, engorging myself in every aspect of this game I find interesting and the stuff surrounding it. So I think first, we should start with some fan games. Earthbound was the first van game I played, and this one shocked me so much in how much I loved it. I love Earthbound. I absolutely love Earthbound. It has so much personality, so much heart. I love every single thing about this game. There's a lot of Undertale and Deltarune influence in this. In fact, there's actually a certain point where the character is aware that they died and returned to a previous save. Also, these character portraits and the setting just give me huge Undertale vibes. I mean, it makes sense. It is an Earthbound fan game. Earthbound is one of the inspirations for Undertale. Yeah, but this was ridiculously good. You play as this kid named Odile, just a regular guy, except you're semi-possessed by this mysterious, disembodied entity. It wants you to grow stronger and will do anything to make sure nothing gets in the way of that. But by day, you're a regular guy who's close to his math teacher and has a dopey best friend. I love how established their relationships are, and how you're rewarded for paying attention to dialogue. The character writing is impeccable, and each one has a quirk or memorable thing about them. Plus, the atmosphere is so amazing for this one. Earthbound genuinely made me nostalgic for high school. I was still in high school when I played and wrote this, but still. Man, that's how you know it took me long to make this video, because I'm in college now. Wow. Yeah, it feels so bad being nostalgic for high school right now. I feel like a bum. No one should be nostalgic for high school, ever. That shit sucked. Earthbound goes above and beyond in conveying its personality. There's a fight that occurs where a pair of teeth freaking disintegrates your principal, and the battle background is the cafeteria with your friend looking all shocked in the background. I really crave RPGs with this much charm, and I'm gonna be honest, we're kind of short on those. It's oozing with charisma, and very little times do I actually derive so much joy from just taking in everything. There's so much good dialogue crammed into this experience that my brain was actually overloaded. And don't forget that this game is only like 15 minutes, 5 minutes if you skip all the dialogue. I have all this to say about a game that's only 15 minutes, and I was so disappointed to learn there's only 1 chapter. I'm not sure if the game was abandoned because they said chapter 2 will be out in 2023, and you know, it's not out yet, so I have no idea. The creator of this also mentioned that this was their first Earthbound ROM hack, which is absolutely insane. This was one of my favorite gaming experiences of 2024, and you're telling me this is your first time doing this? I wish there was more, I really do, but for now, I guess I have to cope with the fact that this is it. Yeah, now I'm kinda depressed. Plus, the dev hasn't been active on the net for over a year from as far as I've seen, so now I'm double sad. Even if they've moved on, I hope they can do what they're passionate about in life because they're extremely talented. I am a black person with no rhythm. This is something that I will never admit to any of my black friends ever. I go to a black college and I have to attend a lot of parties, and I don't think you guys know how embarrassing it is to be the only one who legitimately can't dance. And yeah, I'm sure you can see that in this gameplay. It's embarrassing. Actually, I'm embarrassing myself just by showing it. It's a Mother Friday Night Funkin' mod with 3 stages: Earthbound Beginnings, Earthbound, and Mother 3. Mother 3 was the easiest one, just mainly due to the fact that the prolonged notes are easier for my tiny brain not to miss. but I liked all of it. It was very fun and charming. I'm not a huge FNF fan, but I can vibe with it every once in a while, and this was pretty awesome. Although, again, I'm terrible at this. Gosh. An Earthbound Kirby fan game, except it's not a fan game and just a cosplay of a fan game. I was so disappointed to learn this wasn't real, but I still want to talk about it. This is a series of animations created by Oniri Boy, who decided to bring their concept of a Kirby RPG to life. It's meant to convey a series of events that occurred before the game Kirby's Dream Land took place, and you play as a young King Dedede with a cast of party members. The pixel art is stunningly beautiful. I could only wish to make something as vibrant as this. It's really well made, and I suggest you check it out. I like to watch it and pretend it's a real game that exists so I don't get sad that it's not real. Plus, the person who made this is super talented. I love all their stuff, man. The colors they use in the animations are so vivid and distinct. Super underrated. The Earthbound Halloween ROM hack. This is certainly a game that exists. It has art. It was coded and made by a person, that person being Toby Fox. Yeah, I know, you're probably expecting me to take a huge dump on this game given the fact that it's in vogue to crap on it, but I think it's, yeah, no, I'm still gonna sort of dump on it. I don't care if it's cliche. This fan game is most notable for being a work of Toby Fox's, and is only really known due to having Megalovania in it. Plus, the theme of choice morality in this actually carries over and inspires the philosophy of Undertale in a sense. It's like an underbaked proto-version of that, with all the precision of a monkey with a screwdriver and the subtlety of a magnitude 9 earthquake. As a game, it's not a very enjoyable experience, but it does have some interesting stuff story-wise. Again, even if it's executed very sloppily, I was decently invested in the narrative. I think its current reputation is deserved, and everyone talks about this game so vaguely. It used to kind of annoy me because I wanted to know what the deal was with this game, and it seemed as if no one was willing to talk about it in detail. But after playing, I certainly know why. It's really something that can't be described. If you have a free afternoon, I genuinely do recommend playing it though. It has some neat and interesting ideas, and even if you do come out of it not liking it, you won't regret actually playing it. Something I completely failed to mention until now is that up to this point, I played all of these fan games last November. No, not November 2025, November 2024. I haven't touched any of these in over a year, and despite that, I can still vividly write about all of them in detail. It's crazy looking back how fast time flies. As much as my life has changed, me working on this video has remained a constant, and I'm not sure if I should be happy about that. Either way, Touhou Mother is a very unique kind of fan game that takes a bunch of ideas and runs with them. It's unapologetically nonsensical while still being grounded enough for you to want to be invested. I'm not at all familiar with Touhou, but I do know they tend to do this thing where they take different IPs and tie it into their own little thing. From what I know, anyone can use the characters and do whatever they want with them, which makes for so many interesting scenarios. It must be even more fun for people who are already familiar with the characters, so seeing them in different, outlandish settings must be really cool. It's like its old multiverse type thing from what I've seen of it anyway. I've played a few myself, but never actually played the original bullet hell games because I cherish myself enough not to do that. This specific fan game has a vibe akin to a forgotten early 2000s Flash game. It's so damn cozy, man, and it's really fun. It's great as an RPG. It succeeds in everything it's trying to do, and you'll get a lot out of playing it if you do play. I made the mistake of calling this a ROM in another video, and it's actually not that, which helps it be more unique as there are less limitations due to it not being a ROM hack. Enough about fan games though. Remember those Earthbound manga issues I mentioned at like the very beginning of the video? Yeah, well I read those too, and I'm going to be talking about my favorite one. I came out really shocked by what I witnessed. There is literally no universe where the outcome of me reading these doesn't end with me flabbergasted. It's such a weird piece of media that doesn't get mentioned much at all. It feels like these just exist. Like, do you know that odd feeling you get when a piece of media just exists? It's obviously past its prime and the creators didn't think much about longevity when making it. It's there, existing, and really nobody in 2025 knows or cares about witnessing it. That's how I feel about Earthbound Gaigus Strikes Back. This is probably the most well-known Earthbound comic. It follows the original game pretty closely and paints a more vivid picture of the world and characters. They do take quite a few creative liberties just for pacing and time reasons, and after a read, the manga completely ignores the original story and changes almost everything. They visit a town called Twin Pigs and discover stuff about alternate timelines, a snowy Arctic with feral hounds, a random wasteland featuring Master Belcher's lair. I was expecting it to just be a shortened manga version of the game, but I think they got bored adapting the game, so they took this route halfway through. It's super abrupt, especially when this Dick Tracy-ass character appears, but I actually like it a ton. It honestly makes me wish this was longer because the alternate reality concept was really cool and not explored enough in my opinion. In fact, this is really short with only 13 chapters and around 200 pages. You could finish it in like 2 hours with a couple of breaks like me, and that's coming from someone who loves to marinate in the art and analyze it before turning pages. The character dynamics are also hugely emphasized here. Ness is no longer mute and is extremely talkative. This gives us more time to learn about him as a person and his struggles through our journey. He has insecurities about his usefulness in the group and wants to prove to himself that he's not dead weight. This is set up through a love triangle between Paula, Jeff, and Ness. Ness sees Jeff as a superior and basically competition. Paula and Jeff hit it off really well, and this fuels Ness's insecurity that he's not useful enough. It's mostly all in his head, as before and after this, he's proven himself to be more than capable of handling stuff. I wish the romance between Ness and Paula was revisited after this. It's not brought up, save for a few jokes here and there. No kiss at the end, no confession, no sweet moments. In the original game, it was left up to interpretation what their relationship was, so I think it was odd they'd make their feelings for each other official without actually doing anything with it. That aside though, the writing for this is super faithful to the humor and writing of the game. The author Itoi Benimaru did a really good job at understanding the personalities of these characters. There was never a point in time where I said to myself, that's out of character, and this is extra commendable given how little he was given to work with, given the main cast are mute for like 95% of the game. There are also a lot of surprisingly funny moments in this. It's quippy as hell, and makes good use of visual gags. Plus, there are plenty of fourth wall breaks here. Again, this was done before it was everywhere, so it comes across as quaint. Also, given that this was a manga made by a Japanese man, the author did a super good job at replicating the style of American comic strips. As someone who read these endlessly in elementary and middle school, it is so accurate that I actually assumed an American author made this. The art style is very boomer comic-like, along with some of the humor, but it doesn't appear derivative. I know boomer comic is a very vague, meaningless term, but you know what I mean. Boomers basically pioneered that comic book style, and a lot of the humor we now kind of view as cringe, you know, I hate my wife, I hate my job, 1984, and stuff your grandma reposts on Facebook. But even now, you can see the influence those older comics had on stuff even today, and it was definitely still present in the 90s. Sure, it's corny, but I think every generation can say they grew up on something like this, so I can't even say I'm not invested. A lot of that humor was very character driven, whereas today, that's not so much the case anymore. Although, since it is Earthbound, there is a lot of subverting tropes and surprising the viewer by breaking norms. Instead of satirizing RPGs, it satirizes these American comic strips, while also acting as a really good imitation and love letter to them. The secondary characters were joy to see here as well. They get fleshed out a lot. I love how the Runaway Five is portrayed in this game. They're so sleazy, but still likable people despite their antics and scamming. In the game, they're portrayed way less maliciously, being victims of the entertainment industry, while here, they're the ones doing the exploiting. Porky's dad is also shown in all of his assholelessness. In fact, he's shown in an even worse light in this. In the game, he tried to be somewhat cordial to Ness, even if he failed at it, but here, he doesn't even care and is an absolute piece of work. Some less notable characters also get some pretty notable appearances here, like a former pogo punk who becomes normal and briefly accompanies us in a happy village. And this Yeti creature that was basically a complete footnote in the game literally was only an early game Winter's enemy, and I don't even know if they're like the same thing. They look kind of different actually. But he gets a pretty significant role here. I think Porky's betrayal in this is the most important for me though, and also the saddest. It's actually really depressing. Porky isn't betrayed all that great, but he's not horrible or anything. And unlike in the game, where he becomes increasingly more conceited and irredeemable, it doesn't actually happen here. He stays relatively consistent throughout, and never becomes an antagonist to Ness and the others. This makes it more tragic for me, as it means his downfall is completely unjustified, solidifying him as a victim. I'm not using this as a criticism of the manga. In fact, I think it's an interesting take on Porky as an antagonist. He disappears in the manga, and neither the reader or Ness and gang actually realize until the end, and they kinda just brush it off. Like, damn, that's actually really freaking dark. Porky is constantly being tortured in this, and at worst, he's merely an annoying kid and somewhat a bad friend. It's not like you can argue that he chose this like in game, because he's basically kidnapped and it's clear he did not consent to what happens to him. Again, it's very tragic and such an interesting take on his journey. Going back to other secondary characters, look what they did to my boy Mr. Saturn. I don't even hate it, but why? It's not even like Mr. Saturn is that hard to draw. I'm so confused about this change. In fact, the Mr. Saturns in this manga don't exist, it's just this one guy. Despite the story going by very fast, the progression still manages to be relatively satisfying. There's a small chapter-long training arc, good character development, and a super well choreographed and drawn Gygas fight at the end. However, Gygas does talk in this, and it's super weird. I know he talks in the game, but here he talks directly to Ness. I always felt as he was talking at you in Earthbound, whereas here, they're having a full-blown conversation. I feel like Gygas is above talking to us. It keeps him feeling like an otherworldly entity. His motive is also the typical humans are parasites type spiel. I preferred it when his motives were completely muddled and all we could really see him as was an indecipherable entity with unimaginable power. That aside, it's still a great read and I recommend it. I was holding off on reading it for the longest time, but it's pretty worth it. I suggest giving it a read yourself. It's very cozy and fun. Enough reading though, that's for nerds. Let's get back to video games, but not fan games this time. Instead, full-fledged games that carry a huge Earthbound inspiration. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass. You thought I'd mention Undertale or Deltarune first. You really thought. Jimmy and the Pulsating Mass is one of those weird as hell mid-2010s indie RPGs that nobody remembers. I'm being serious when I call this weird, by the way. It is weird. It's clearly very amateur, but has so much heart put into it that it mitigates any of the drawbacks of an amateur RPG. You can be competent while still being amateur, and this game is extremely competent. It was made in RPG Maker, so that's probably why it has that feel. It's also ridiculously creative. It feels as if the creator just had these visions and put them in the game without polishing them, and that's a good thing. It's so unhinged in its creativity. Omori. Oh, this game. I think Omori has had some of the most toxic, annoying, ridiculous discourse of all time. Luckily, that was years ago and I'm insulated from all that, so here we are. Omori is a unique game that felt so prevalent in the COVID era just due to its theme. It's a brutally honest game and doesn't hold back on its portrayals on mental health and trauma. There's a good balance of whimsy, contrasted with some of the most disturbing things you'll probably see in a game like this ever. Usually the stark contrast would be jarring, but the game justifies this with one of the best plot twists I've ever experienced in gaming. I was really on the fence of talking about this in the video, as you could argue it's not super related to Earthbound. If you're being generous, you could say it's somewhat Earthbound adjacent. The headspace area reminds me a lot of Magicant, and it kind of validates that unsettled feeling I said I felt being in Magicant itself. Story-wise though, I'd say it's more akin to Mother 3 in terms of themes. Omori is a product of the subversive indie RPG wave, kickstarted by a certain other game influenced by Earthbound. And as an RPG itself, it's great. The battle screen is unique, and the actual battle mechanics are a breath of fresh air. A lot of indie RPGs try to quote-unquote innovate on turn-based combat in ways that can feel half-baked or intrusive. Here it's engaging, and I just love it, man. Plus the art and music is stellar. I'm going to keep this short because I know if I don't limit myself, this video could potentially be 3 hours, and trust me, neither you or I want to be here that long. Actually, maybe you do. Stop that. I think labeling Undertale as directly inspired by Earthbound is unfair. It's an amalgamation of a lot of different games and ideas, and Earthbound happens to be a pretty big chunk and a stew of inspirations. The theme of nature versus nurture I brought up earlier is super prevalent, as well as another developed exploration of morality. Before Undertale blew up and its whole twist was half ruined by the internet, it featured a super unique narrative structure around mercy and morality and all that stuff. I don't even really need to explain that part. The actual structure of Undertale follows some interesting parallels to Earthbound. Of course, the otherworldly eldritch horror of a final boss, a separation of the player and the character you are controlling throughout the game, and an emphasis on situational morality, understanding the context of people's situations and how it may influence them to do questionable and immoral things. It's an expansion on those themes I talked about and presents them in a matter-of-fact way, whereas Earthbound was more interpretable. That's not to say Undertale isn't interpretable, it certainly is, but just in a different way from Earthbound. Also, both games, while lighthearted on the surface, can actually be pretty damn sinister the closer you examine. I remember as a kid losing sleep over Undertale lore videos. It was really dumb. I even talked about it to my school counselors. Dark time. Moving on to Deltarune, this will be more brief as I don't have enough experience with the game. I played chapter 1 the night it came out and haven't touched anything past it since then. I know about the stuff that happens later on, just in a very fragmented context. If Undertale is Earthbound, then Deltarune is Mother 3, and the Halloween hack is Mother 1, I guess. I can't tell if I should be offended by that comparison actually. It's Mother 3 in the sense that it feels like an expansion of the previous game's narrative in a very ambiguous way. Again, I'm not super tapped into Deltarune, but I remember people speculating whether this was an alternate universe, different time period, or direct continuation of the previous game. Which that discourse exists with Mother 3 as well. No one is completely positive where it fits on the timeline. I think both have transcended being compared to these games and have officially solidified themselves as their own thing. Nobody talks about the Mother inspiration as much anymore, which in my opinion is a good thing because people back in the day were really annoying about it. There are so many RPGs that I can say have been inspired by Earthbound, if even vaguely. And at this point, pointing to Earthbound as an inspiration for a quirky indie RPG would be like pointing at Seven Samurai as an inspiration for any movie with a team building plot. It was a pioneer, and its influence can be found almost everywhere, directly and indirectly if you look deep enough. Cthulhu Saves the World, Hylix, Yeek, Citizens of Earth, Yume Nikki. Obviously, I'm not saying every indie RPG is directly inspired by Earthbound, but I think it's made enough of its mark to where a lot of its soul can be found in so many things that came after, if even vaguely. Its influence is so widespread that it can be found in an exorbitant amount of things. Even my humor, art, and very life goals have been influenced by this game in some sort of way, which is so weird to think about. In fact, I watched a documentary exactly about this scenario. Earthbound USA. Can you believe that this video took so long that the last time I watched this documentary was over a year ago? This documentary was so good that it stayed fresh in my mind to the point where I didn't even feel like I needed to rewatch it fully. Or maybe my memory is that good. Yeah, no, it's definitely not that. Earthbound USA is a lot of things, and I don't think I was prepared for any of it. It's informative, emotional, inspiring, enlightening. This is a masterfully crafted narrative that kept me captivated throughout the entire thing. Before I even talk about it, I want you to watch it first. I know you're not going to do that, but I'm still going to suggest it anyway. I don't care if I lose watch time, just watch it and come back or something. You're still here? Okay, anyway. Earthbound USA follows a group of different Earthbound fans and their relationship with the series, culminating in how the unofficial translation of Mother 3 was first created. The documentary spans decades, with such a grandiose feeling to it. In fact, it feels more like a movie than a documentary. They make so many fun editing decisions here, as well as reenactments of certain events relevant to the game or the people we meet. It just has everything, and explains so well in a fast-paced, concise way the history of the Mother series, from Earthbound all the way up to the translation of Mother 3. The home video recordings that were taken of the Starman.net users is super cool to see in real time. It's an amazing capsule of this relatively obscure late 90s to mid 2000s subculture. Personality oozes from this project, and I can tell they had a blast making this. In fact, I'm pretty sure, at least I heard, it took like 10 years to make this documentary, which is insane to me. They interviewed so many people, one of the main people behind the Mother 3 translation, marketing professionals who helped create promotional material for the game, former Nintendo employees, Shigesato Itoi himself. They even have Toby Fox in this, and no, I am not kidding. Finding new footage of Toby Fox is like finding a shiny Pokemon. It's an absolute roller coaster of emotions, with even a heartfelt romance plot thrown in there. I really wasn't kidding when I said this felt like a movie. If I had no idea what Earthbound was, and you showed me out of context, I'd assume it was a really well crafted mockumentary surrounding a made up game and a bunch of lovable nerds who dedicate their lives to it. It's so sweet, man, and I think I should just leave it at that. I couldn't properly articulate how much I enjoyed this and how much I want others to experience it as well. Unironically, a 10 out of 10, and I do not give those out a lot. I will forever lament the fact that I will never be a nerdy Starman.net user in the mid-2000s traveling the country with my friends. We're a little stressed on time, so let's briefly talk about all the important stuff I didn't mention, but what to get into in this video. Legends of Localization Book 2 Earthbound, a great looking book that I was going to get, but I can no longer afford it, man. It details the localization of Earthbound with a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff. Starman.net, a fantastic website full of every Earthbound resource you'll ever probably need. It invokes the feelings of those old school sites, which I mean makes sense because it is one of those old school sites after all. And even decades later, it's still relatively active with years of history to explore and lots of great people to meet. The site is super well preserved despite the pretty poor state of the internet lately. It's a nice community filled with so much love, and I just can't help but like it. Wikibound, you have helped me so much. Thank you. I couldn't have done this without you. It goes into excruciating detail regarding basically every aspect of the game. This Earthbound Lost Media I found out about around a year back. It's merely concept art, and the game was never conceptualized, but it's still super interesting. An Earthbound remake in this style would be so kick-ass. On to some other Earthbound novels / manga. There's quite a bit of Earthbound reading material that, again, I didn't get to share, such as this choose your own adventure type thing that is neatly translated into this Google Doc. It's a bit of a clunky read, but it's so fun and brings me back to my childhood reading this type of stuff. Mother 2 Okuku. This is less of an actual narrative and more of a gag comic. It caught my interest due to this super cute cover art, and the actual thing is pretty cozy. But again, not too much substance here because it's a gag comic. Asai Comics Mother 2 manga, another gag heavy manga right here. It's surprisingly difficult to find panels for these. It seems most of them weren't properly archived online. There's also a lot of magazine content here that acts as promotional material for the game. A lot of Japanese only stuff, which is so stylized and charming. It feels so grossly 90s, and I mean that in the good way this time. A lot of the promotional material for Earthbound, while not lost, is extremely hard to come by on the internet, and I don't think I have the means to import authentic issues to my house. There's also some cool doujinshi, which is self-published works made by fans and people passionate about the series. Like the Mother 1-2 manga. These are really cool to read as they're able to take more creative liberties while also trying to stay close to the source material. Another one that caught my eye was Okiraku Mother manga. Pages for it online are sparse to say the least. But the little that I saw piqued my interest. I love the art style, but again, enough reading. Let's move on to the most important thing for me. The fans. Earthbound fans are some of the most dedicated, hardworking people I've ever seen on the net. They're all so creative and talented, and I am super glad to say that I am part of this fan base, even if I haven't been tapped in before making this video. My bad. Also, I want to thank you. That's right, you the viewer, for making this possible and watching all the way to the end. So thank you, viewer. Thanks a lot. I really mean it. So, what now? I've been talking my ass off. In fact, I'm pretty exhausted to be honest with you. It feels weird, you see. I've been working on this video for, again, over a year now. It's crazy to basically be done with it. I guess this part of my life is just another example of a person being so moved by this game that they dedicate a good portion of their life to it. Not only have I changed so much as a person since I started this video, but my life has changed too. It's almost unrecognizable. I joked earlier about this, but I'm being serious this time. I worked on this video at home as an aimless, anxious kid who felt lost and disillusioned with the world, and now I am finishing this video after coming back from my first semester of college. No more freezing my ass off in the back of class writing a script while doing my history homework. I know what I want my future to look like, and I am more confident in myself than ever, and I genuinely don't care how this video performs. I made this knowing it'd get like 10k views at most, and I'm just glad Earthbound has been with me all this time. Not a year goes by since I played this game that the direction of my life isn't affected by its presence, and that's not a joke. I've picked up so many talents, made so many great friends, and experienced so much because of this game, both directly and indirectly. Earthbound is everything to me. I made this video knowing full well it's been talked about to death so many times, but at a certain point, you have to stop caring. I've spent hundreds, maybe thousands of hours thinking about this specific game, and I think me making this video will forever be the climax of my relationship with it. It has and will forever continue to inspire me as an artist, a YouTuber, game developer, as a creative. Earthbound is about many things. It's about the human condition, morality, innocence, youth. What is my life without Earthbound? In fact, I could never tell you why I first played the game or why I first made this video actually, but it doesn't matter. What matters is we're here. I think it's time for me to ride off into the sunset though, all mysterious looking, symbolizing my growth. Thanks to all my lovely viewers, great friends, and amazing family who have supported me along the way. Now, I think it's time for me to go now. I've said enough. Hey, does anybody have any sunglasses? It's hot as hell, it's burning my eyes. God, that hurts. Once again, thank you for watching to the end. I have a few other things cooking right now, so if you're interested in my channel, you should look at my Patreon, because that's where I post all my stuff early, and who knows how busy I'm going to be next semester. Don't worry though, you don't have to. Just watching my stuff is more than enough of your support. Anyway, I'm freaking tired as hell, man. I'm going to bed. I'll see you.